Dear Toastmasters, honored guests, I was going to embrace the topic of the evening tonight, December 21st, 2011, but I thought about it, and I can't give you an exact answer other than I do believe that something dramatic and wonderful is going to happen. So I hope that you will embrace this change and accept it in your heart. And as we move on to hopefully a higher dimension, a more loving dimension, I'd like to give you some tips on how you can remember people's names or beings' names, as a matter of fact. So I don't know if you've ever had this, that you went to a meeting, maybe even a Toastmasters meeting, you met a wonderful person, like wonderful Mrs. Tuna here. You had a nice discussion with her, then you run into her again the next meeting. You remember you spoke with her, you remember her lovely face, but oh my God, I forgot her name. So, if you're like me, you've all had this experience before, and I'd like to give you some tips to how to avoid meeting, for example, Ruben here, how to avoid not remembering her name the next time you see her. So, the first thing, there's several steps you can do, and the first thing you can do is to take advantage of a natural predisposition we have as human beings. And when I was researching for this speech, I was very surprised about this one. So we're born with a natural ability to remember every single face we ever see in our lives. It's stored somewhere in our brain. We don't have to do anything, we'll remember it. What we do have to do is we have to spend some effort on remembering the name and associating it with the face. And it's interesting, they actually did studies to prove this memory of faces. For example, they had test subjects, and they asked them to remember, for example, 10 different objects. Then they asked them to remember, for example, 10 different events, and then they asked them to remember 10 different persons. And in all cultures, for men and for women, all test subjects always had the easiest time to remember people's faces. It's very interesting. So, now I'd like to show you some tricks that you can do to make the connection between the face and the name. So the first thing you can do is to think of something that is unique about a person. So I remember, for example, here at the Toastmasters Club, we had a very, very sweet lady, and her name was Sherry. And she used to be the president of this club when I joined. And I remembered her name because I kept saying to myself, she's so sweet, she's like a cherry. And in addition to that, she had red cheeks. So I made the connection between her red cheeks and the cherries. I remembered, she's sweet like a cherry, and cherry sounds like sherry. And when I met her, it's Sherry. Well, I thought it's cherry, but I remembered her name is actually Sherry, not Sherry. So this is an example of the type of connections you have to make. And now there's some scientific methods you can use on top of that to help you remember names. So the first method I like to share with you is the face method, focused on the face. So there's 4 steps here in the face method. The first step, standing for the F, is focus. Just have a look at their face so you remember them next time. You'll remember the face automatically, but when you focus, look for outstanding features, because it won't help you memorize the face. You're looking for some outstanding features on their face to help you memorize that person later on and to help you make a connection to their name. The next thing to do is, as you talk with that person, use their name at least once. Maybe ask them a question using their name, make a comment with their name. So you use it at least once. That stores the name somewhere in your brain. The next thing is comment, and here I don't mean verbal comments to them, I mean internal comments to you. Now, you're commenting on a unique feature of that person. So you may comment, Tuna has lovely lips. And now you can use her lips to make an association to her name. You may make a comment that she has nice brown hair, or something similar like that. Look for especially something outstanding. A prominent feature will really help you, like a big nose or a pointy chin or something like that. I'm not saying that you have a big nose too. And finally, employ. End the conversation. Make sure you end the conversation with a name. That will help you store it one more time. Now, here, the comment bit is the most important, and I'd like to elaborate a little bit on the type of comments you can make. You can make 2 types of comments. The first type of comment is based on observation, and we call this the observational system. And in the observational system, we attach some type of meaning to their name to help us memorize the name easier. We don't have to spend any time on the face again. We have to memorize the name. So here we have another test subject. Instead of Tuna, this time we have Selçuk. So when we think of Selçuk, so we don't have to spend too much time on his face, but we have to think of Selçuk. Selçuk, let me think about Selçuk. Well, it has two syllables, Sel and Çuk. So this is an observation we can make. Selçuk, Sel and Çuk. Okay, here we have, now we can make some further observation and we can look at, we can say, oh my God, you know, Selçuk has really watery, runny eyes. That's funny. It's like Sel. Sel means a flood. His eyes are like a flood. So Sel, like a flood, attached to his watery eyes. Then we have Çuk. Think about Çuk. Doesn't it sound like sucuk? A little bit. So we have Çuk like a sucuk, and he does have quite a big nose, doesn't he? Now we're not telling him you have a big nose. We're not telling him your nose is like a sucuk. This is internal, remember. You're not telling this to the person. This is to help you remember the name. So we have Sel like a flood associated with his watery eyes. And we have Çuk, like a sucuk, which we can associate to his nose. Then also we can make the observation that Selçuk is derived from the Selçuk Turks, which is a civilization that came before the Ottoman Turks. So we've made all of these observations. Now we have to make the cross matching. Now we have to make the association. So we have the big nose, like the sucuk, which reminds us of his name, Selçuk. We have the watery eyes, the Sel, which is like a flood. Then we have the Selçuk Turks, which are older than the Ottoman Turks. And we have a very, very close friend, Osman. And Osman is younger than Selçuk, which makes sense, right? Because the Ottomans come after the Selçuk Turks. So we've made a whole bunch of cross connections to make sure that we remember his name is Selçuk. So now I'd like to ask you one thing. Remember her at the beginning of the discussion? How many of you recall her name?
Gülin.
No. Sherry? No.
Gülbin.
You said something, but I couldn't hear.
Okay. Something, but I couldn't hear is not right either. That's not her name. Gülbin. Okay, so we have one person remembering her name is Gülbin. Now, how many of you remember his name? Okay, there you go. Thank you very much. I hope I was able to help you memorizing people's names next time you meet them. Thank you.